Welcome to Living Low Sodium with Mary Schepp. Join Mary as she tickles your taste buds with her salty wit and her exceptional palate, all whilst guiding us through the land of low sodium living. Of course, this show brought to you in part by the support of Reeses Barkery and Pawtique. Check them out at reesesbarkery.com. Give them a call at 815-363-7297. Why? Because your pets need to eat healthy as well. Today, the power of food, part 4. Hey, Mary.
Good morning. So it's funny because when I think about the power of food, there's about a million things I can talk about. And there's about a million things that we've already talked about. And it's hard because the number one thing that people always tell me is they're glad that I don't push my lifestyle onto them. I don't yell at people for not eating low sodium. I don't yell at people for eating unhealthy. And I myself am addicted to ice cream. You know, if you guys have watched at all.
As I sit here eating the onion soup that you brought in.
Hey, that is healthy-ish.
It is. It's delicious.
It is low sodium, and it is made from scratch with one of my favorite broths. I use all Pacific Foods. So that's their Pacific Foods.
Delicious.
Broth.
It is delicious.
So trying to figure out what to talk about. And then I do research and more research as if I didn't do enough research on food and all of the different effects. It's no secret that eating healthy is good for you.
Right.
Everybody knows that. At its simplest form, to eat healthy is good for you. Yeah. But how much does food really affect you is the question. And I don't think I think in the front of their mind, they know that food affects you.
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol affects you, drugs affects you, sugar affects you, salt, all of those things. But as the food research itself, and we touched on it in the 100 years of food history, because it's a really in its infancy, the research behind how food affects your body. And it's only been in the last couple of decades that they started researching the actual gut biome, which you get, it sounds disgusting, but between your DNA and what you're made up of in the soup that you swim in when you're in your mother's belly, combined with the soup that you swim through to get out of your mother's belly, and then her breast milk, that, much like making cheese, has its own set of bacterias and good, bad, and indifferent. Like the first thing you do before you're born is you poop.
Right.
So you're literally swimming in your own feces. So everybody's gut biome is different, but a lot of it you get from your mother coming, when you're born. And they're discovering how, I just read an article the other day about how they're linking your gut biome and the health of your gut biome to Alzheimer's disease. And there's a direct correlation between the bacteria in your gut and in your intestinal tract and how it affects your memory, your neurological, like your whole body is insane. And food has a huge impact on all of that because we live in a society now that is salt, sugar, and alcohol.
Yeah.
And that's normal. So I always laugh when it's not that other topics aren't important. Obviously, guns are a big topic in the world today. Viruses are a big topic in the world today. All of those different things. But the thing that's not important, it seems, is the food we eat. Because what you get published and what you get pushed out is the McDonald's and the Subways and the fast foods of the world. So as we discover this, and as I started doing a little bit of research, the one that seems to come to the front is sugar. And I know this is a low sodium show and we're talking about low sodium, but so low sodium isn't for everybody. Everybody handles salt differently. And just because, like with myself personally, I have liver disease, so I retain water easy because my system is messed up. But I also, if you test my blood, I'm low in sodium. I can't just eat pickles and have my blood sodium go up. The actual protein receptors in my cells that receive different things are messed up. So I don't filter things into my blood the way that they're supposed to be. So I can go home and eat an entire jar of pickles. I'm going to bloat and feel awful and gain 10 pounds of water weight, but the blood sodium level is still going to be the same. So there's certain things that you can contribute and certain things you can't. But certain diseases make you, you need sodium. Like a lot of people with gout, that sodium helps with the uric acid levels. So if somebody has gout, but they also have heart condition and they're told to go low sodium, and then their gout symptoms flare out because they're going low sodium because they're not getting enough electrolytes to do all this.
But here's our in the United States. Here's our education. It's the 4 food groups and the food pyramid. I was
going to say, if you bring up the food pyramid, I'm going to throw this
right. And hey, you need to have 3 servings of this, 2 servings of this, and a clean plate.
Right. That is horrible. Mm-hmm. I just had a conversation with a friend because she was talking about, good morning, Nora. Talking about how her kid doesn't eat.
Yeah.
And I said, have you ever thought about the fact that your kid's belly is the size of like a ping pong ball? So when you're surprised that he's full after eating 4 grapes,
mm-hmm.
like technically a serving of food is half a sandwich. It's a slice of bread, a little bit of mayonnaise, and 5 slices of ham and a slice of cheese is a serving. So if you feed your kid, which if you made a half sandwich, if you cut a piece of bread in half with mayonnaise and a full slice of cheese, so that's doubled up. Good morning, Ted. And then 5, usually it's 3 to 5 slices of lunch meat, depending on the lunch meat. That's a big sandwich. So when you feed your kid a full sandwich, when you're looking at these little children and they have a full sandwich on their plate and a little bit of fruit and a little bit of a vegetable, that's a lot of food for a little kid to eat.
It's a ton.
And technically that's an adult serving, which is why I've cried about servings from day one, because I can have 14 potato chips and 2 tablespoons of salsa.
Right.
Like, what kind of evil is that I get enough salsa for 2 potato chips, but I get the rest of the potato chips plain? So when you talk, and you're right, when you talk about what we're taught, and of course the food pyramid came out of, lobbyists supporting the grain industries, the milk industries, and dairy industries. So, I mean, that was spawned out of different reasons. And of course, even now, our knowledge of how food affects the body is leaps and bounds what it was 50 years ago. And we still barely know anything. 50 years ago or 60, mm-hmm. I don't know how long ago it was, they were putting cocaine in Coca-Cola.
Right.
And I think it's funny how people think that's a joke. It's like, no, it was a legit thing. The guy that invented Coca-Cola was, I believe he was a morphine addict, because back then they didn't think anything of it. And he had chronic pain, and then he ended up with stomach cancer, and he was trying to create this thing. So they created this, trying to use the cocoa leaf, which was super bitter, and trying to mask it. So he coated it with a boatload of sugar, and they created a cocaine drink.
That's
and
amazing.
It became Coca-Cola. So you think of where our food knowledge started. But now the $1 million question is when you're so far down that rabbit hole and you walk into grocery stores and the first thing you see is a wall of cases of soda, 3 for $10, 3 for $9. First thing you see when you walk into a grocery store, you make it through the front doors. What's the second thing you see? A wall of potato chips.
Right. That's it.
And you're going, how the heck? What do you do with this? So sugars, what I don't think people realize is you don't need sugar. It's not part of your dietary requirement.
Right.
And when I say sugar, I mean, I'm not talking like a keto diet, and I'm not telling people to go on that, because not the keto diets are bad. Keto diets they do serve a purpose if done correctly. And if they're done wrong, I'm telling you, you could do serious damage to your body. So if you're going to do a diet of any kind, keto diets, Mediterranean diets, I don't care what it is, you need to pay attention to what you're doing. And the best option is to do it underneath a dietitian or a doctor. But when I say you don't need sugar, it's not a dietary requirement. Your body turns carbs into glucose without having to have any added sugar. Potatoes, broccoli, fruits, vegetables, all of these things that you eat on a daily basis, your body will naturally turn into sugar. So you don't have to eat an additional sugar to get that. So sugars like table sugar and lactose, milk sugar, are quickly absorbed in the upper part of the small intestine. More complex carbohydrates like starches and fibers are not easily digested and may travel lower into the large intestine. Microbiota help to break down the compounds with their digestive enzymes. The fermentation of ingestible fibers causes the production of short-chain fatty acids. So the reason that, and I pulled this little excerpt because it's always fascinating to me how our body turns food into what we need to utilize it for.
Mm-hmm.
So short-chain fatty acids that can be used by the body as a nutrient source, but also play an important role in muscle function and possibly in the possible prevention of chronic diseases, including certain bowel disorders. Clinical studies have shown that short-chain fatty acids are useful in the treatment of ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, and antibiotic-associated diarrhea. So when you think about how food that you ingest affects you, if you're not having somewhat of a stable balance in your diet, then your body's going to store what it thinks it needs, and it's going to purge what it doesn't think it needs, which isn't a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
Which is why you tend to have these gut issues, because you're eating things out of balance. And when you don't have those fibers and those other sources to create those short chain fatty acids in your lower intestine, it affects everything. If you have skin disorders, if you have diabetes, if you get migraines, if you have joint problems, back problems, stomach problems, I haven't had any of those issues since I got sick. So when I was younger, I can't tell you how many times I've been in the hospital at one point they thought my appendix was going to rupture, but then they did a scan and there was nothing wrong with my appendix. So they couldn't figure out why my gut was doing what it was doing. I ate like garbage.
Yeah.
I had a super high metabolism. It was just like any kid. I weighed nothing. I was unbelievably skinny. And I thought about this the other day. I'm like, how weird is it to think that my freshman year in high school, I was 75 pounds lighter than I am now.
I was 134 pounds.
Right. Like I'm
lighter.
not fat.
I am.
I mean, I have a decent amount of fat, but I'm by no means fat. My BMI is not out of whack, nothing, but I was so tiny. And then I ate like garbage on top of it.
Oh yeah, no. When I went into high school, I was 5 foot and 100 pounds. They were both marks for me, right? Those are I hit 100 pounds,
right?
And yet I could sit and eat 2 Big Macs.
I ate 3 foot long subs once,
right, in one sit down.
And we were sitting there, and it was funny because my husband was there at the time. This is however many years ago. Because it was at the time, it was Subway. Yeah. It was buy one get one free for $5.
Yeah.
So I bought one, got one free, ate both of mine. And one of the other guys in the group, we bought one, got one. I think technically I ate like 2.5 because he couldn't eat.
But still,
he couldn't eat them all.
Right.
And here's me, this little tiny 100-pound soaking wet thing.
Let's go.
Pile it in. Like we've been running around all day. Let's do this. We still got to ride our bikes all the way back home.
That's right.
But that, like, as they do this research and find out how much these things affect.
Oh.
And we were just talking about this before the show, how I say it all the time. You don't know how bad you feel until you feel better.
Right.
I quit drinking when my liver failed back in 2015. I quit smoking when my liver failed in 2015.
Yeah.
And of course, I made a significant lifestyle and diet change. The messed up thing is as hard as that was, now that I don't have gut wrenching, I mean, no joke, they full blown were about to put me on medication to dull the pain and about to go in and do exploratory surgery because they thought it was my appendicitis or something else. And I was, my fingernails were purple. Like it was weird. So, and it turned out that I had a mild intestinal infection. So I had some swelling and inflammation, and it was causing, like a blockage.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of funny because the doctor's like, you need to go home and fart. Like, oh, all right.
Is that it?
Thanks. Tell a 14-year-old girl that.
I can do that right here. I don't
Right.
have to go home and do that.
You didn't have to say that in front of everybody here.
Right. The note from the doctor.
Right.
Mary just needs to fart.
Yeah.
That's why she wasn't in school today.
Right. She's like, yeah. So, but I did all my life. I've had, and I just assumed, like a lot of people do, that's just me.
Yeah.
I've tried everything. Well, you give yourself justifiable license to say that you've tried everything because you tried something for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when I got into my early 20s and started learning, it was never a weight issue for me. It was I'm horribly ill all the time. And, a friend's mom was doing the cabbage soup diet. So I tried the cabbage soup diet because I like cabbage and was like, this is stupid. And then it got rid of some problems, but created a whole host of other problems.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I got sick that I felt better.
Mm-hmm.
But discovering how much sugar affected me is, I think, the biggest shocker. The salt part didn't really surprise me that much because I got it. You eat a lot of salt, you swell up. I get it. Makes sense. Salt attracts water, so on and so forth.
Yep.
It made sense. But how much sugar causes inflammation in your body that you don't realize until you feel better, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely blew my mind. I don't have my glasses on. I can't read what.
Yeah. So Magda says the biggest misconception too is I'm skinny, so that means
Right.
I'm healthy.
Oh my gosh. I used to say that all the time.
I always say, yeesh, that person needs to eat a cheeseburger.
I know. Ben and I do that all the time. Hey, someone's got to give her a sandwich.
It all depends on the makeup of your body, though.
Right.
No.
And the flip side of that, because I've gotten a lot of grief for supposedly fat shaming people. I don't fat shame people. I don't care how big or how little you are. When you're big, my heart breaks for you.
Mm-hmm.
Inside, I weep for you because you tell yourself that you're healthy. I don't want to see you going through what I know you're going to go through when you're 60 or 70 years old. That being said, just because someone's overweight doesn't mean that they're not healthy. And when I say overweight, if someone's got an extra 10, 20, or 30 pounds, when you're talking people who are 600 or 700 pounds, you're talking a different realm of things.
You're talking somebody. So I'm 5'10". Mimi just says, great topic. I need to hear and try to understand this. So I'm 5'10". And a few months ago, I tipped the scales at 253.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, ooh, clothes didn't fit well. Right. I didn't feel well. And I was just like, this is brutal. And I'm an athlete, right? So I was a college athlete, so there was a point in my life where I had next to zero body fat, but over the last 30 years after being out of college, I have treated my body poorly.
Not to mention genetically, as we age, like if you look at a pride of lions, there's a reason why there's one that's more muscular and bigger and fluffier. And as you become into that matriarchal age, almost, or that silverback age, your body structurally is different.
Yeah. And so with that said, I start doing some research, and for a guy 5'10", it says that I should weigh somewhere between 167 and 189.
Right.
I'm just a little over that. I am actually 6'10" is where I would fall in, right?
That's funny.
Yeah, and so in doing so, that's where, as we talked in the green room, I started making different choices.
Right.
Not dieting at all, not
No.
like
No.
not counting calories either, just understanding and listening to my body, right? And through this, what I've learned too, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, is I noticed gastratory rhinitis. So
Yeah.
so what that is your nose runs when you eat hot, spicy food. Well, I have what is deemed allergic. So there's some foods that I eat. So the other day, I run home for lunch, and the only bread we have is white bread. So I take and I make a ham sandwich, with some baby Swiss on it, and some mayonnaise and mustard, and some of Lilbert Kitchen's cowboy coins, and awesome. And the cowboy coins are a little spicy.
Yep.
And I don't, and all of a sudden, everything's fine. Right. So I eat that sandwich. I'm like, okay, let me make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because I haven't eaten all day. So then I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the same thing. My nose starts to run. So I'm like, well, that's interesting. I have the same things there. It's either the peanut butter or the jelly that I have an allergic reaction to now that says, oh, my nose runs when that happens. Because it didn't with cowboy coins.
Right.
Right. And it was hot and spicy. And you think, okay, it should.
Yep.
But so now I've got to play around and say, all right, it was Smucker's this jelly, or was it the peanut butter? And now I have to see which makes that reaction. So then I can say, I guess my body doesn't like that.
And again, I don't ever begin to tell people, because on face value, it sounds really simple, because it is. Do an elimination diet. Easy. That sounds great. You eliminate everything, slowly add foods back in. The problem is in order to get your body to recognize that is no longer there and stop reacting and reduce the inflammation in your body. So when I first started an elimination diet after my liver failed, I did 3 months, 3 solid months of plain chicken. And you have to watch, because sometimes chicken's brined. So chicken without any kind of salt solution, just 100% regular old chicken, which is how I got into the farm thing, but that's another tangent. So plain chicken and plain potatoes.
Yeah.
Mashed potatoes, boiled potatoes, baked potatoes, roasted potatoes, whatever kind of potatoes. I allowed myself, I did avocado oil in the beginning because it's one of the least likely things that you're going to have a reaction to. And I'm talking plain, no salt, no pepper, no herbs, no spices, no nothing. I lived on chicken and potatoes and water for 3 months.
Wow.
After about 4 weeks, I started introducing eggs. So I guess month 1, I was chicken, potatoes, eggs, and water. No coffee, no tea, no soda, no sugar added, no flavoring added, no water with coloring or flavors or lemon water or whatever, just plain old freaking water, nothing else. And keep in mind, I'm a coffee snob. Yeah. I love coffee. If you looked at my Facebook, I just posted, I was at Aroma the other day. I love my lattes. But I lived on that for months. So it sounds simple, and that's really hard to do. And I get that. So then I started introducing foods, garlic, onions, because surprisingly enough, a lot of people don't realize it. It's very common to have an allergy to the allium family. So onions, garlic, all of those bulb type things. It's very common for people to have an allergy to those and not know it. So you're eating garlic and onions are in everything. Yeah. So you have this inflammation in your body at a base level that you never even know about because you never discovered it. And just because you do an allergy test, so I've had a lot of people go, oh, I've had the little
it's a prick on the back.
pinprick test, and I didn't test for that. Well, they're discovering that just because you don't have an allergic reaction at a skin level, by consuming these things over a long period of time, if you have a sensitivity to them, the chemicals that those are made up of and the compounds they're made up of build up in your gut and cause an alteration in your gut biome and cause an inflammation and a reaction. So this is part of the research that they're just now doing. So I added, and it took me a year, but like you, over that year, I discovered, I'm nightshade sensitive. So I got to watch how many tomatoes and potatoes and zucchini, which those are my 3 favorite things. I will actually have a dish that I make them all together as one. But to discover how much something like you said, where you go, now I got to figure out, is it the peanut butter or is it the jelly?
Right.
And is it just that jelly or is it all jelly?
I wanted to say it was the white bread because I don't do a lot of white bread, and I really wanted
horrible for you.
And I really wanted it to be that, but I was like, wait, I just ate one, and I didn't,
And that's the thing, is a lot of people can eat white bread because it's salted cardboard. It's virtually
not good.
It's nutritionally void.
Yes.
But we have a bread show. Go watch some previous episodes and you'll see, which I think is hilarious. A small little snippet from the bread episode we did with Kim Nordine. Mills her own flour, gives me a couple loaves of bread. It's absolutely amazing. Pete ate the whole loaf when he was sitting here, and I'm like, you got to be careful. You're going to be shitting for hours. And she even warned me. She goes, when you go home and it tastes good, like you can have like 2 slices a day because her kids, she had to have her kids like warn their friends. Like, oh, this is good. And you just eat a whole piece of bread as a snack. You can't do that, because when it's made with fresh milled flour and it's the whole grain, you get like 3 days worth of fiber in 2 sandwiches. And for those of you out there who've overdosed on fiber,
colon blow.
It is not pleasant.
No.
Not pleasant.
Oh, that's funny.
So, and that brings us kind of into the next little topic here, is that sadly, many people make a huge lifestyle change or a diet change, and they experience gas and gut pain and other detox symptoms and go, holy crap, this made me feel awful. It's not working for me, must not be for me. I'm going to quit it.
Yeah.
If you've been eating garbage and if you've been living on fast food and sugars and chips and white bread sandwiches all your life, and you say, I'm going to be healthy, and today you have yogurt and fruit for breakfast, and you have a salad for lunch, and steak and broccoli for dinner, and you go, holy crap, I feel like garbage. Well, your body has to get rid of all of the garbage that it's been eating.
Right.
And that takes time. And I'm not talking like 3 hours time. It takes weeks for your body to purge all of this garbage. You sweat, you stink, you get acne, you get pimples, you get gas, you get bloating. When you detox your body, it's not always pleasant, especially if you go on one of those, like a keto diet. You're going to be miserable for a few weeks.
Yeah, they call it the keto flu.
Right. Yeah. At least they warn you about it. Like your breath's going to stink. Your sweat's going to stink. Your body's going to ache. Your bowel movements are going to be awful. You're going to want to die.
Yep.
And for those kinds of things, if you stick to it and do it properly under a doctor's guidance, somebody like me, if I did a keto diet, it might kill my liver.
Sure.
I need a different kind of diet. And that's where anybody asks me, what I tell them to do is do an elimination diet and eat real food.
Or talk to a dietitian, right? So the interesting thing is, and we've talked about this over the last couple of years too, is medical doctors take 2 or 3 chapters on nutrition. Right. So when it's like, consult your doctor, they're going to be like, eat 4 food groups, lower the amounts, exercise more.
Right. Eat your dairy. And I'm going, wait a minute. So, and it's a point of contention for me with dairy, because I'm a self-proclaimed cheese slut. I've had people tell me that you don't need to make your dishes so low sodium. And I go, yes, I do. Because if I make whatever pasta dish or food or anything I make, if I make it super low in sodium, I can put 4 pounds of cheese on it because I love cheese. But like milk, I stopped drinking milk forever ago. Like we're not supposed to drink anything but water. Period. Like that's physically how we are made up. We are supposed to drink water.
And how weird is it that we're drinking another animal's milk?
Right.
It's just
no other species does that.
None.
Even cats. People are like, oh, well, I feed my cat milk. You realize that almost all cats are lactose intolerant, and you're probably going to make your cat or kitten sick by giving it cow's milk. Yeah. They're not meant to digest it. Even when I've started lately, if I use milk, I've started using goat milk because it's actually easier on your body.
I always loved, you remember The Courtship of Eddie's Father, that TV show back in the 70s? That's what they always drank was goat milk. And I never was able to get the goat milk. So that's interesting that you say that.
Yeah, no, I actually haven't. Well, I don't know what it is. Yeah. Whatever the little tiny thing of milk is goat milk. But there are places you can get goat milk.
From a goat.
Mostly the ones in the grocery store. Again, it's highly pasteurized and blah, 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 which is the downfall of anything that's, commercially processed is it's processed so that it is shelf stable because so tomatoes, for instance, take months to get to the grocery store shelf.
Yeah.
So they pick them green, like super, super, super green, and suck out all the oxygen. And they essentially make the tomato go dormant. So because they pick it, and people have said like, oh, well, it's because it goes in transit and because of the ripeness and how they're done and whatever, that's why they're not sweet as the ones that you grow in your garden. And the reason they're not as good as the ones that you grow in the garden is because the strains that they have developed to last for that long period of time are not as flavorful. And the fact that they pick them when they're green means the sugars haven't developed yet. So they don't taste like the ones. So then when they unpack them and take them out of a temperature controlled environment, then they ripen.
Yeah. Jen asks, have you done any research on MSM?
No, because I don't know what MSM is.
I don't either.
If I look it up,
I can do a little. You keep talking. I'll do a little research.
If I knew what MSM was, I probably could tell you. I'm not good with abbreviations. So when you detox, and I hate the word detox. I hate all the diet. I hate that word, detox. You have a liver and kidney and spleen and gallbladder. You have organs and an intestinal tract to detox your body. That is its purpose. When you drink alcohol, when you eat garbage food, when you ingest toxins or viruses or bacterium or anything, that is what your gut is for.
MSM is methyl sulfonylumethane. It's a chemical in animals, humans, and many plants. People use it. People use it most often to try to treat arthritis. MSM can be produced in a lab where it is sometimes combined with supplements such as glucosamine or chondroitin.
Yeah. I know of it. I haven't done research on it because, to be honest with you, I stopped researching man-made products. When I cut sugar out of my diet, my pain went away.
True.
So I used to have, I'm not even kidding you. So my acupuncturist has been on the show. He's amazing. And tomatoes on the vine, it doesn't matter. If you buy it in the grocery store, it makes no difference. They've been sitting in transit for months. Your best option is to grow your own tomatoes, get them from a farmer's market, or if you don't have those options, obviously you can get them from the grocery stores. But just know it's not that they're bad. It's just that when people go, why don't they taste as good? In all honesty, when it's the off season, I made salsa the other day.
Yeah.
And Ben and I were both like, I don't know, like it's good, but like it doesn't taste like my salsa. And finally, halfway through the tub of salsa, went, oh, I know why. It's the tomatoes. They taste like nothing. So when we make it, because we grow tomatoes in our yard, so that's the difference. So I made this makeshift tomato sauce out of canned tomatoes, which is truly a salsa. So what I make is more actually akin to a pico de gallo. Chunky tomatoes, chunky onions, chunky. I use poblanos because I can't do the heat. So I make that pico de gallo. So I whipped up a true salsa, which is blended and thin like you'd get in a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And at first we're both like, nah, because it's from a can. But as the flavors married, like we made a taco pizza the other night, poured the whole sauce on the pizza, put some, because I always have taco meat in the freezer.
Yeah.
Made it, and now Ben's been using it on everything. He made a bagel the other day and put it on a bagel. Like it's full blown like a red restaurant salsa. It's amazing. And it's San Marzano tomatoes out of a can, mixed with onions, poblanos, cumin, some ground coriander, which is just cilantro seed, some cilantro, mix it up, a little balsamic vinegar, and it blitzed it, and it was great. But unfortunately, if you're buying it from a grocery store, whether it's tomatoes on the vine or tomatoes otherwise, it's all a gimmick. They're tomatoes, and they've been sitting on a shelf for a while.
Mm-hmm. Now you said when you eliminated sugar.
Yep.
And that's like the white sugar, brown
sugar.
So
I stopped. If I splurge, and to get back to what she said about MSM, the reason why I stopped researching is because I discovered the power of real food.
Yeah.
So anytime I try to supplement with something that's not from a food, I react poorly to it because of how sensitive I am. Between the fact that my liver and I have advanced cirrhosis, and now I have a neurological issue with a lesion on my spine, I'm super sensitive to any change or inflammation in my body. So if I take a supplement, if I take an energy drink, if I take a powder drink, if I add like glucosamine chondroitin is known, like you give it to your dogs for their hip dysplasia. It is known for joint issues. And I found that if I can eat the proper foods in my diet to supplement, like I hate bananas and I'm low in potassium. So I eat bananas. I eat 2 of them every day to make sure that I have enough potassium versus taking a potassium pill, because I had every side effect known to man, because our knowledge of this is so young that that's why you take one pill and they give you another, because we don't know a lot. So we think, oh, you need potassium. And I don't know why it caused you this horrible distress, but your potassium levels are up. So that's good, right?
Yeah.
But when I quit sugar, so we gave ourselves, in my household, we gave ourselves justifiable license for 2 sugars, coffee creamer and ice cream.
Hallelujah.
And I have white sugar in my house and I have brown sugar in my house. If I'm going to splurge and make cookies or a brownie, I'm not fooling anybody. Like when someone's like, oh, it's a healthy brownie. No, it's not. There is no healthy brownies or healthy scones or healthy baked goods or healthy bundt cakes. It's a fucking cake and you're eating it. Just enjoy it and say, you know what? I'm going to live life. I'm going to be happy and I'm going to splurge and have a cake.
Yeah.
I mean, I have advanced liver disease and a hole in my spine. You know what? Screw you. I'm going to have a bowl of ice cream. I know exactly what it does to my body. But when I eliminated sugar, and even now, and my husband, Ben will say something like, I was going to see if you wanted ice cream, but it's 8:29. And because if I eat sugar past 8:30, I'm not sleeping that night.
Yeah.
I'm just not. My joints kill. So as soon as I eliminated sugar, and on a daily, regular basis, outside of a splurge and a treat, it's honey. The only sugar we allow is honey. So if I make something, if I cook something, if I add something to my yogurt or cereal or oatmeal or anything of that nature, and even my bread, I stopped making or baking bread with sugar.
So when I was a kid, back in the 70s and 80s, breakfast was Cheerios.
Or cornflakes.
And a half of a bowl of sugar.
Right.
So that you had the sugary
and then
milk.
They invented Fruity Pebbles.
Yeah.
Which just included the sugar.
But as I was taking a look at the notes for the show, you were talking about, how many grams are in a teaspoon or whatnot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my breakfast is as a kid.
Right.
or back in the 80s, remember the grapefruit diet came out. And so
you put sugar on top.
You had to.
3 teaspoons of sugar on top of the grapefruit.
At least.
And then once you got into the grapefruit, you need another 2 tablespoons or teaspoons of sugar.
Yes.
So your grapefruit was like, yeah, woo, I'm healthy. I eat grapefruit. And then.
So true.
Yeah, no. So when I talk about sodium, and I just had this conversation yesterday with someone because somebody bought donuts for the office. And I freaking caved and had one. But I was like, that's, $300 out of my day. Easy.
Yeah.
If I'm lucky, it's $300. It's probably closer to $600 or $700.
I was going to say.
She's like, what do you mean $300? I said, well, if I'm supposed to have 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams of sodium per day, I can't remember that. I couldn't remember that. And it made it hard for me to track those things because I never have. So if I turned it into money, because everybody pays attention to money. If I said I'm allowed $1,500 to $2,000, so when I look at a label and see that donut is 300 grams of sugar or 300 milligrams of sugar or sodium, that's $300 out of my diet. 2 servings of steak, which is an 8-ounce steak, which is still small because typically you eat a 12-ounce steak, at least if you're me. 2 servings, an 8-ounce steak is like $150. So do I want $150 out of my day and have a steak with some broccoli, which I love broccoli. If you don't like broccoli, have something else. Or do I want to spend $300 and feel like garbage because on top of that sodium, it's sugar. So when you talk about how bad you feel on a regular basis, and when you talk about, well, I take glucosamine for my joints, or I take this for my arthritis, or I take this for my migraines, I take this for my anxiety levels, and believe me, I've been on all of those medications. The reason I got started with Dr. Ron Masakawa with Midwest Health and Wellness and Health, either way, Dr. Ron Masakawa, was way back when because I had horrible pain in my hip. He put a needle in my hip. It was about a foot long. I didn't feel it. It was the weirdest thing. Acupuncture is messed up.
Yeah.
But he helped me tremendously. And even back then, he's like, you got to, I know you're young and not going to listen, but you need to watch your diet. Fast forward. And now that I'm on a healthy lifestyle and I still see him. So now he just keeps me regulated because I have a jacked up spine and I have nerve damage. But I stopped researching all of that stuff because I realized as long as I'm getting the real food that I need and eliminating the alcohol, the cigarettes, and the sugar, and I know it sounds like that must be a boring lifestyle. Like, well, I know a lot of people that do it and we're all perfectly happy. And on top of it, our pain is gone.
Yeah.
But the sugar was that key component. So like we said, 1 teaspoon of sugar has 4 grams of sugar. Now keep in mind, so sugar is a carbohydrate that occurs naturally in many foods, fruits, vegetables. The body breaks down carbohydrates to make glucose, which it requires for energy and healthy functioning. Added sugars in foods are not naturally occurring. The body requires no added sugar to function properly. So you get enough sugar from broccoli, potatoes. You don't think of that as sugar, but anything that has carbs in it, your body converts to glucose. So breads, all of that stuff, pastas. So they don't really have a recommended, when they talk about an RDA, recommended daily amount, they don't really have a recommended daily amount for sugar. They don't list one because you don't need any sugar. So the heart associations do say that you're supposed to have a certain amount because studies have shown that over that amount increase your risk for heart disease. So because of the fact that you don't need added sugar, you need sodium to live.
Right.
You need potassium, you need magnesium, you need proteins, you need fats. Your body needs certain things to function properly. It does not need any added sugar. It gets those sugars naturally. So every single sugar that you get that's not naturally occurring in a piece of food is garbage.
Yep.
You might as well, it's like smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol. You are literally eating something or consuming something that is absolutely unnecessary to the function of your life. The one little blurb that I stole says, if 24 teaspoons of added sugar per day is too much, then what is the right amount? It's hard to say since sugar is not required not a required nutrient in your diet. The Institute of Medicine, which sets recommended dietary allowances, or RDAs, has not issued a formal number for sugar. The American Heart Association, however, suggests that women consume no more than 100 calories, or 6 teaspoons, or 24 grams of sugar, and men no more than 150 calories, or 9 teaspoons and 36 grams of sugar, of added sugar per day. Now, that's what they recommend, because anything above that shows an added risk of heart disease. But there's still, like we said, there's no RDA for sugar. That is close to the amount in a 12-ounce can of soda. So,
Jen just says MSM is one of those things the body needs. It's the third biggest nutrient the body needs behind water and salt.
Right, but it's also naturally occurring. It's not something that you need to take a supplement for.
Right.
It's the same with salt. If you eat, the biggest reason why they started at like salt and iodine, because we weren't getting enough. Because when you had food famine and shortage, when everybody was literally living on potatoes.
Well, right. And again,
you're nutritionally void.
But again, a lot of the frozen food, the prepackaged food that Americans live on today, it may be short of a lot of that and high in a lot of sugar.
Right. And that's, so the other thing about sugar, as someone who has liver disease, high amounts of sugar overload your liver. Your liver metabolizes sugar the same way as alcohol and converts dietary carbohydrates to fat. So over time, it can lead to a great accumulation of fat, which turns into fatty liver or contribute to diabetes and raise your risk for heart disease. So I run that risk, and believe me, I think about it, talk about it, and worry about it on a regular basis because of the fact that I already have advanced cirrhosis.
Right.
I do have to very closely monitor how much sugars and fats and portion size and all of that I eat, because I am high risk for the last bit of my healthy liver to get fatty liver, or I'm like 90% more likely to get liver cancer. So I do pay very close attention to all of those things and do my research.
Lisa.
Oh, hey, Lisa. So just for a fun little experiment, I printed out 2 different, I should share them on my page later. I think I emailed them to you.
Yep, let me get in there.
So I took 2 snippets from 2 different breakfasts. One is a bagel with cream cheese, just a plain old bagel. And one is yogurt with honey and a banana. So one is 430 calories. Well, can you steal just the images, or will it steal a screenshot? Or
I don't know. We'll just share what
we'll
I can.
see what that. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Let's see.
See if we can share the thingy. So one's 403 calories, one's 430 calories. And you look at it and say, okay, if we're just looking at numbers, we have 57 grams of carbs versus 69 grams carbs, 15 grams fat, 7 grams fat, 13 grams protein versus 19 grams of protein. So from just a black and white perspective, and you're looking at these numbers, and you scroll through them and say, okay, calories to calories, it's not much difference. Fat, one's higher in fat, one's lower in fat. Cholesterol is pretty close to each other, 40 milligrams versus 30 milligrams. Sodium, one's got 700 milligrams, one's got 87 milligrams. So one's really high in sodium and one's really high in sugar. So if you're looking at a label, which one do you go with? So I'm always a huge proponent of, you have to read the label, you have to know what you're consuming, and you have to know from a standpoint of how can you make better choices if you don't know what you're consuming. So the difference between the 2 of these is processed versus unprocessed. So a bagel is a processed white bread with processed cream cheese on top. So the only thing I can tell you is, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a trained dietitian. I don't have a lab somewhere where I did a bunch of research to tell you all the way down to your gut biome how these things affect you. What I can tell you, as someone who has been on this lifestyle and dietary path since 2015. That bagel makes me feel like garbage.
Yeah.
I'm bloated, I'm fat, I'm tired, I'm sluggish, and that carries on for hours. But it's within my limits of what I can eat. Like the sodium is a little high, but I can eat it.
Mm-hmm.
The sugars are, it's only 8 grams of sugar. I can eat it, right? So you look at the other one and go, okay, the sodium's lower, but the calories are still there, and the sugar's through the roof. That's my entire day's worth of sugar. All of that sugar comes from honey and a banana. The protein is through the roof, almost 20 grams of protein, because it's Icelandic skyr, which we here call yogurt, but it's just a thicker, better tasting yogurt. If you want it, it's Siggy's, or there's actually a brand called Icelandic. So all I can tell you is that when I eat the yogurt with the honey and the fruit, I feel fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of my biggest problems is after, how many people after you eat, you want to sleep? Because it takes so much energy for your body to process the garbage that you just consumed, because it has to pull any nutrients out of it. So like added salt, it actually has to take the sodium from the chloride. It has to separate that. The added sugars, it's got to process those sugars. So when you eat things that you're not supposed to eat, and your body has to actually process those to pull out, and then also the amino acids that it needs to create in your gut to actually turn those things into beneficial things that you need, is extremely exhausting. So that's why when people are like, oh, well, I had turkey dinner and it's the tryptophan. It's not the tryptophan. The amount of tryptophan you have to consume to actually take a nap is pretty significant.
Yeah.
So it's not your turkey dinner that's making you sick. And of course, I keep fidgeting here because my spine is killing me today. Of course, here I'm telling you that sugar makes you feel better. In my defense, I actually have a lesion on my spine, so it's more so that my leg keeps falling asleep than anything else. So that's, the fun part with me.
The fun part.
But I will say that, so if I eat yogurt and honey, so that's on here, it's almost 54 milligrams of sugar to have a couple tablespoons of honey in my yogurt with a banana. So technically on paper, that sugar is too much for me based on, dietary requirements of what I should have on a sugar level. From a physical aspect of how I feel, if I eat 50 milligrams of added sugar, of white sugar, brown sugar, any kind of sugar like that, I can feel it in my spine within an hour. So the downfall of having a lesion on your spine means that at a cellular level, if I have inflammation, most people don't know. You get, you eat a lot of sugar and you have a night out drinking and everything in your body's inflamed. You don't really know it until you start feeling arthritis and things of that nature. Because of that spinal issue, though, that inflammation is almost instantaneous for me.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they can't explain why, they kind of know, but they really don't know why honey is so healthy for you. But since I cut out sugar, my joint problems, my migraines, all of those things are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like you yourself had recently, on top of other things, cut out sugar.
Yeah.
So how is the joint issue?
Yeah, it's amazing. So really, my ankles, knees don't hurt. If I do end up partaking in a nothing bunt cake or something of that nature, my knees are stiff, my ankles hurt, pop, crack. And I've had one ankle that's been reconstructed, so that's the one that's really quick to feel it. But eliminating sugar, and this has been since Easter, right? So
this isn't like a lifelong thing,
right?
For
so
you. Recent
month and a half, right? Or so. So to just be like, oh my gosh, to get up in the morning, be able to stretch without pain, because you're like, oh my gosh, I wasn't eating ice cream after 8 or 9 or whatever, and have cut that out. It's odd to say, because we live in a world that says, you know what, Mary, you're getting older. Your body's supposed to ache a little. No, it's not.
And that's the thing that blows my mind is that's the lifestyle. That's the education that you get is, as you get older, you get creaky and old and stiff, and that's just how it's going to be. And the funny thing is like all these diets and for a while I was a huge proponent, and I still feel that you should eat something within a couple hours of waking up.
Mm-hmm.
But there's, you got to eat every couple hours or 3 hours. You got to get 3 meals a day, 4 meals a day, or 3 meals. And you got to have so many snacks a day, and you got to do this, you got to do that. And again, all I can tell you is my anecdotal evidence of what has affected me since 2015 when I made a lifestyle change. Yeah. And it's everybody's heard of, or most people have heard of intermittent fasting. And you think like, oh, I got to fast for 3 days or something like that, and I'm not going to do that. When you go in for blood work, they tell you can't eat anything past midnight because they only need a 10-hour fast. So your body, the circadian rhythms of your body are set to, sunrise, sunset. So come about 6 o'clock every night, your body, without you knowing it, instinctually starts to shut down. Then your metabolism changes, everything changes. So everything that you consume after 6 o'clock is stored and processed differently.
Yeah.
They've shown that. They've done studies on that. There's clinical trials on that. So when they talk about intermittent fasting, if you stop eating and consuming anything but water after 6 o'clock, and you don't eat again until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock the next morning, you just did half a day fast. That's a 12, 14-hour fast.
Yeah.
So when I don't eat after 6 o'clock, and for myself, that's really hard. So I tend to try not to eat anything after 7 o'clock. So if I don't eat after 7 o'clock, I will drop weight insanely fast. But the second I have a cookie, an ice cream, potato chips, popcorn, and that's the downfall is once you start looking, there's plenty of low sodium options.
Yeah.
Or low sugar, no sugar added options. The fact of the matter is, if you consume any food at night, your body stores it differently than it does during the day.
And keep in mind too, because here's what we do as a species. I'm sugar free.
Right.
So let me eat aspartame.
Right. And that's where we get back to these man-made products, and it's like,
if you're going sugar free, cut it out. Right. Doesn't matter. Don't replace it. Go natural with honey or whatever. But and I can't even stand the taste of that stuff. But the interesting thing is,
bugs will not eat aspartame. Like if you put aspartame or candies with aspartame on the floor, a lot of them will literally avoid it and not go after it until it starts to melt to a point where it separates to where they get the other stuff out of it.
Same with like quote unquote butter or margarine. Give it the fly test.
I get everything full fat. Like if I'm going to have it, I want it as least processed as possible.
Yeah.
And same with sugars or salts, the salt substitutes, that you're substituting one thing for the other, and you're not breaking the habit or fixing the underlying root cause of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to be better, you gotta be better. And I'm not saying you got to go all in like I did, but you just have to make the effort to be better. So thank you for listening. And please, like always, follow us on YouTube. The more subscribers we have, the more luxuries we have. We have 216thenet.com. You can also download our app to listen to our station anytime, listen to our shows. Of course, 216thenet on Facebook. And then in mine, Living Low Sodium, mylowsolifestyle.com. And forgive me because my website is still under construction.
It's right there. My Low Soul Lifestyle.
Yeah, it's there, but it needs some work.
You're not busy at all.
No, I don't have anything going on. I don't do anything.
Nothing. That's good for you.
Back next week.
There we go. Hey, for all of us here at 216 The Net, thanks for getting stuck in the net with us here on Living Low Sodium with Mary Schepp. Come back in about an hour for the Neighborhood Pulse with Kevin Callback and Eddie Martinez. This is the Real Estate Show. That's all about real estate. We'll see you.